you all to the second day of the 3-day online training program on child-centric disaster risk reduction. Day one of the training program was extremely enlightening for all of us, for which I must thank our esteemed dignitaries, Shri K.M. Singh and Professor Santosh Kumar, and also our speaker for the session, Dr. Raka, as he touched a very important topic, which is the need of the hour. Now, in continuation to it, we have some very crucial subjects which will be covered today. And I hope that the participants make the most out of this opportunity and actively engage themselves in today's discussions. Moving on to the technical sessions for the day, we have 3 sessions scheduled for the day, and every session will be succeeded by a question answer session. Participants may kindly share their questions in the question answer box, which will be taken up post session, and we look forward to your enthusiastic participation. I would like to remind the participants to kindly register themselves if they haven't done so far, and we'll again provide the registration link and the steps to register in the chat box for your kind reference. Now we have with us Ms. Namrata, who's a counseling psychologist by profession. She has an extensive counseling experience with children, teenagers, young adults in schools and hospitals, as well as from various socioeconomic backgrounds. She is currently working as a counselor with YWCA of Delhi, where she provides counseling services to women in shelter homes from various sectors of society, dealing with mild to severe psychological and psychosocial problems. Today, she will be sharing her valuable views in regard to the mental health of children in the time of disaster. I'm sure this session shall improve our overall understanding and perspective about the immediate and long-term health impacts on the children, which are very challenging to estimate. So without taking any more time, I would welcome Ms. Namrata and would like to hand over the platform to her. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Malika. And it's a pleasure to be back on this platform with Policy Perspective Foundation. Without taking much time, because we're going to have quite a few sessions today, right? I will be wrapping up pretty quickly, right? So let me just share my screen. Hold on. Okay, could you make me the host?
Yeah, just a second. Ma'am, you may kindly check now if it's...
Yes, thank you. Okay. Now I hope it's visible.
Yes, it's visible.
Great. Okay, so welcome everyone. My first question to you all will be whether you all will be comfortable in only English, only Hindi, or should I be bilingual, both. तो फटाफट से हम एक बार chat box में देख भी लेंगे that you all are able to use the chat box or not. So quickly answer my question by writing Hindi, English, or both. Bilingual, great. English, okay. Awesome. English or bilingual? Both. Great. Which means that our participants can now also use the chat box. And I would highly, because for now we are only around 51 participants. So I would highly recommend that we make this session interactive also, because this topic is pretty interesting and it will, you will be able to connect with this topic personally. You have children at home, you have teenagers, you yourself might be students, or as parents also, some concepts of our of psychology, not some but most concepts of psychology can be applied universally, and my presentation today will entail a lot of those concepts. So let's begin. I will not talk about the preventive measures, but just want to mention that the fear of Omicron, if I'm not wrong, I'm pronouncing it rightly, is there. The government is doing its best to kind of restrict any kind of entry of the virus into our country, but another responsibility of ours is to keep ourselves safe by following all the preventive measures. So let's not be careless and just keep following what we've been doing, and I'm sure this will also pass. Okay, moving on to my presentation. Now, yesterday I think Dr. Raka and the base of the training must have been laid. So I will not talk about that. But today my presentation will focus on psychological understanding of children in disasters and emergencies. Throughout the COVID, we have been focusing on the physical aspects, the social aspect, the education, every sort of thing. But something that has not been, of course, now things are becoming more prominent. But in the previous years, psychological impacts were not taken that seriously. लेकिन जब covid आया, when covid happened, it literally gave rise. It was like all the psychological issues started showing up suddenly. People ask, why is every person suffering from some sort of psychological symptom that is disturbing them? And I will tell you why, especially in children. Now, before we move on to the psychological aspects, let's discuss a few basic concepts. Whom are we talking about today? Childhood, children. According to science or psychology, childhood period, you know, uh, ranges from 1 to 2 or 12 to 13 years of age. Okay. Now, you might have seen children of these specific ages, but there it has always been seen that growth is not does not happen in steps, or it does not happen overnight. It is a transitional process. It is a process. Okay. Now let's say you have two children at home. Somebody, you if you have a sibling or you have younger children, both your children are different. They grow differently. Their growth varies. Okay. It is not necessary if one of your kids started speaking at the age of 2 or 3, the other one also did the same thing. Maybe the other one started walking earlier and the second one did not. Okay. Now these are called individual differences, and every human being on this planet is different for a reason, right? So similarly, I would say that childhood period, yes, it does end at 13, because at that point we step into teenage and we step into adolescence. But for some children, the teenage years do not, begin exactly at the age of 13. वो काफी समय लेते हैं उस चीज में ढलने के लिए. इसलिए मैं कहूंगी कि आज हम जो भी इंफॉर्मेशन शेयर करेंगे, वट एवर आई विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट, इट विल apply not just on children from 1 to 13 but also till the age of 18, because ultimately when we step into 19 or the age of 20 or 21, that's when we actually can call ourselves young adults. उससे पहले हम अपने बच्चों को बच्चा ही समझते हैं, right? Now, what is the impact of COVID on mental health of children? Many people don't realize that even mental health for children is also very, very important. But what does that include of? Okay. Mental health in childhood means reaching developmental and emotional milestones. When you say developmental milestones, it can be different for each stage, which I will be talking about a little further. Emotional milestones, how emotionally available the parents have been. Okay. Learning healthy skills, social skills, talking, language development, making friends, building relationships, building confidence, self esteem, problem solving, decision making, learning new life skills, interpersonal relationships. All these things and many more are all included in mental health. Okay. And also how to cope with problems, which is decision making and problem solving. So mental health might seem like just a very small part of our life, but it is our entire world. The way we move, the way we sit, the way our personality differs from one person to another is all included in mental health. So there are a few periods of childhood that a child goes through. So the first one would be infancy and toddler. Now, the why am I talking about these periods to you is because I want to create a mental image in your minds as to what age groups are we focusing on, how, what different things happen at different stages of a child's life. And I would love for you to picture it, because unless you create a mental image, unless you connect, For example, I were to give you an example of a 5-year-old. You will instantly think about a student in your class if you're a teacher, if you might think about a niece, a nephew, a friend's son, or a daughter. So that mental image helps you to understand concepts better. If you agree with me, just give me a thumbs up. Okay. I'm also going to, follow up on the comments. So keep just asking questions. I will probably take the questions at the end. अच्छा, किन्हीं ने हिंदी भी लिखा है विशाल जी ने, तो मैं थोड़ा सा कोशिश करूंगी मैं हिंदी में भी बात करूं. ओके. नाउ first stage is infancy and toddlerhood. This is from the birth to 2 years. जब बच्चा पैदा होता है तो वो डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ चेंजेस से गुजरता है, एंड दीज चेंजेस आर वेरी ड्रामेटिक. ये बहुत मेजर चेंजेस होते हैं बिकॉज दे आर हैपनिंग इन द बॉडी एंड ब्रेन साइमल्टेनियसली. द चाइल्ड लर्न्स दैट ही हैज लिम्स. Sometimes the child learns to blabber, or the child learns how to hold a spoon. These are very major changes, bodily changes in a child's life. Okay. Now the mental changes would include learning how to, familiarize the face of a mother, get familiar with the face of a mother, to cry when he needs something. Okay, these are learning experiences that the child gains every day, which is his favorite toy. So all these mental changes are also happening. And as and when जैसे जैसे बच्चे के experiences बढ़ते जाते हैं, जैसे जैसे वो नई चीजें learn करता है, उसके जो brain में neurons है, वो न्यूरॉन कनेक्टिविटी बढ़ती चली जाती है. It starts to build. Also, let me just inform you, we are born with a specific number of neurons, and the more experiences we gain. Why do most doctors, teachers, or counselors tell you to take your child outside? बच्चे को कलर्स दिखाना जरूरी है, बच्चे के बुक्स पढ़ना जरूरी है. Why do these people recommend all that? Because the more the experiences, the more the neuronal connectivity. और जितना ज्यादा उसके ब्रेन के सेल्स जल्दी जल्दी कनेक्ट होंगे, उतनी ज्यादा उसकी कॉग्निटिव स्ट्रेंथ बढ़ेगी. ओके. सेकेंड स्टेज इज अर्ली चाइल्डहुड. वो 2 से 6 साल के बच्चों का होता है, जो अर्ली चाइल्डहुड पीरियड होता है. एंड यहाँ पे बच्चा डे केयर सेंटर जाना शुरू करता है, या फिर दे स्टार्ट गोइंग टू नर्सरी और किंडरगार्टन. सो here the child sees another world outside the home. He meets new people, so he has to learn how to behave. यहाँ पे बच्चे का एक डिसिप्लिनरी बिहेवियर बनना शुरू होता है. दैट इज वाई स्कूल्स आर इम्पोर्टेंट, इंस्टीट्यूशंस आर इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर चिल्ड्रन. The child learns how to control themselves. He cannot pee anywhere, he cannot defecate anywhere. उसको अपना वॉशरूम में जाकर ही सुसु पोटी जो भी करना है. Then he needs to, उसको घर से टिफिन दिया जाता है, so he learns how to be self sufficient, where he knows how to take out his tiffin, open it, he needs to finish his lunch, and then he needs to keep the tiffin. So he's learning new responsibilities. And language expansion is a very, very big step, very big objective that is supposed to be reached during this period, because बच्चे की language development नहीं होगी तो वो अपने emotions को, अपनी thoughts को कैसे express करेगा. He meets new people, he develops fondness towards certain people जिनको वो friends कहना शुरू करता है. So these ties with peers also make him realize that people can be different from me, and maybe my friend, if I want something from my friend, तो मुझे उससे वो रिक्वेस्ट करनी पड़ेगी. जबकि हम जब घर में होते हैं, हम छोटे होते हैं, we just ask for something and our parents give it to us. When we talk to different people and we learn how to negotiate, है ना. मेरा दोस्त मुझे अपनी पेंसिल नहीं देना चाहता तो मुझे वो फेलियर भी एक्सेप्ट करना पड़ेगा. So all these tiny little experiences happen during the early childhood period. Then comes the middle childhood, which is from 6 to 11 years. यहाँ पे बच्चा वाइडर वर्ल्ड देखता है. ही लर्न्स न्यू रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज. सो यू कैन इमेजिन, अब यहाँ पे बच्चा फर्स्ट से 5th क्लास तक के बच्चे को आप इमेजिन करें, तो वो स्कूल जा रहे हैं, घर में उसको काम करने के लिए भी एक्सपेक्टेशंस होती हैं. Many things change, where they start moving their focus from parents to their friends or to their social circle. And यहाँ पे जब वो टीनेज में एंटर करते हैं, सबसे ज्यादा कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स पेरेंट्स के साथ इसी पीरियड में होती है. Okay, let me just see if there are any questions. Okay, no. Now, I won't talk about this slide right now. Now, बच्चों की लाइफ में बहुत तरीके के स्ट्रेस होते हैं, ठीक है. These stresses can vary from person to person, but I've come up with two very common stresses जो बच्चे face करते हैं. ये मैं pre covid post covid किसी भी टाइम की बात कर रही हूँ, because we are talking about the psychological well-being of a child today. Okay, the first stress they face is that um, they are exposed to new and confusing environments constantly. मतलब let me explain with an example. For a very small child, he has never seen fire. उसने कभी आग नहीं देखी, तो कुछ जल रहा है, एंड द पेरेंट्स आर कॉन्स्टेंटली रिफ्यूजिंग कि नहीं उसमें हाथ नहीं डालना, उसमें हाथ नहीं डालना. तो बच्चा कंफ्यूज हो रहा है दैट व्हाई आर दे स्टॉपिंग मी, एंड दिस इज द ह्यूमन नेचर दैट क्यूरियोसिटी मेक्स यू डू थिंग्स. ओके, नाउ द चाइल्ड डज नॉट लिसन टू द पेरेंट्स एंड वो जाकर हाथ आग में डाल देता है. तो ये एक्सपीरियंस उसके लिए बहुत ज्यादा पेनफुल होता है, बिकॉज ही बर्न्स हिज हैंड. सो from now on he has learned something that I'm not supposed to go next to the fire or else I will be hurt. So every new experience, either it can turn into a success or into a failure, but those experiences which turn into failure can be very very painful for the child, and they can give them a lot of stress. And this happens to everyone, whether it is the teenage years, adolescence, may the body is changing, whether they want to make new friends, all these experiences confuse a child और इससे बच्चे को stress होता है. Second reason why children stress a lot is because of self-worth. Every person in their life till the age of 18 or 19, जब तक वो अपने decisions खुद से नहीं ले पाते हैं, they are expected to behave a certain way, talk in a certain way, do things according to people. Everybody has expectations from children, but during this process the child's own expectations are somewhere lost. पेरेंट्स चाहते हैं बच्चा ये करे, फ्रेंड्स चाहते हैं बच्चा एक सर्टन तरीके से, हमारा दोस्त हमारे ग्रुप के हिसाब से कपड़े पहने. द टीचर्स expect the child to behave a certain way or get good marks. और हर इंसान की उनके आसपास एक्सपेक्टेशंस होती है, और ये चीज बच्चों के ऊपर एक बहुत बड़ा बर्डन होती है, एंड इट कॉजेज देम अ लॉट ऑफ स्ट्रेस. नाउ स्ट्रेस कैन आल्सो बी ऑफ टू टाइप्स. ओके, one is good stress. I'm not sure whether you've heard it or not. It is called eustress, right? Good stress कब होता है? स्ट्रेस अच्छा भी हो सकता है जब वो आपको मोटिवेट करे, राइट? The stress, just hold on 1 second. Yeah, sorry. So, good stress can be of a kind where it can motivate you. ठीक है? For example, you have a performance on stage. आपने बहुत तैयारी करी है, लेकिन स्टेज पे जाने से थोड़ी देर पहले आपको फियर होता है. या एग्जाम, जब एग्जाम होता है तो हम हर बच्चे को एक डर होता है कि कहीं वो फेल ना हो जाए, लेकिन वो डर अगर आपको मोटिवेट करता है ज्यादा पढ़ाई करने के लिए, then it is called a eustress. But if this fear exceeds the level, it can also become a bad stress, because then you will keep on stressing and you might not study. You might black out in the during the examination. So these things can need to be varied differently, and good stress can very quickly turn into bad stress. And that is why it is important to motivate a child that it is okay to be stressed, it is okay to fear, but it is also necessary to move yourself forward and not let it impact your mental health. Okay, now इससे भी ज्यादा डिफरेंट तरीके के कुछ स्ट्रेस होते हैं जो अक्सर हम डिजास्टर्स में भी देख पाते हैं. ठीक है, अब मैं 3 तरीके के स्ट्रेस के बारे में बात करूंगी जो हम सबको होते हैं लाइफ में. द फर्स्ट वन इज बेसिक स्ट्रेस. बेसिक स्ट्रेस डे टू डे लाइफ की स्ट्रेस. एग्जामिनेशन आ रहा है, कल कोई टेस्ट है, मुझे घर में मेरा राशन खत्म हो गया, मुझे खाना बनाना था, मेरा सामान नहीं है, ऑफिस में एक असाइनमेंट पूरी करनी थी, मेरे बॉस ने मुझे बोला था, वो मैं नहीं कर पाई, तो मुझे सुबह जाकर जल्दी अपने ऑफिस आवर्स से पहले जाकर वो असाइनमेंट पूरी करनी पड़ेगी. दीज आर डे टू डे चैलेंजेस. ओके, Now another kind of stress is cumulative stress, and this stress happens जब basic stress pile up होता जाता है. अब आपने वो assignment नहीं करी, you did not go early to the office, you were in fact very late, your assignment did not complete on time, and now the stress is constantly building on you. You have an examination after 1 week, but you have wasted 4 days. Now you only have 2 days left. So 3 days left. So that stress is now constantly accumulating because you have done nothing to remove that stress, and that becomes cumulative stress. और cumulative stress का नुकसान ये होता है कि जब वक्त निकल जाता है तो आपके उसको रिवर्स करने का कोई तरीका नहीं होता है, राइट? एक तीसरे तरीके का स्ट्रेस भी होता है जिसको हम बर्नआउट कहते हैं. Burnout में क्या होता है that the person is emotionally and physically exhausted because she has been working so long in that stressful mind that now the body starts to break down, it starts to give up. And this is typically work related, but I'm not just talking about office work, I'm talking about a housewife. ये एक यूपीएससी, नीट, इंजीनियरिंग या किसी एंट्रेंस एग्जाम देने वाले स्टूडेंट के लिए भी हो सकता है. एग्जामिनेशन प्रेशर, जब आप अपनी बॉडी को एक्सेसिवली टायर्ड कर देते हैं और उसको रिलैक्सेशन का टाइम नहीं देते हैं, दैट इज व्हेन योर बॉडी गोज इनटू अ बर्नआउट फेज, एंड दिस इज द वर्स्ट काइंड ऑफ स्ट्रेस बिकॉज देन इट टेक्स अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम टू कम बैक. ओके, मैं ये आपके साथ क्यों शेयर कर रही हूँ? यू माइट बी थिंकिंग व्हाई आर वी टॉकिंग अबाउट stress today, right? The reason I'm talking about stress is because during COVID, people have been excessively using all their resources, अपनी सारी एनर्जी लगा रहे हैं, लेकिन वो अपने आप को किसी तरीके से रिलैक्सेशन नहीं दे रहे हैं. One thing that you all need to remember is, यहाँ एक प्रो टिप देना चाहूंगी, keep some time for yourself. Give yourself some me time. Okay, you must have heard about self care, self love. वो इसलिए होता है ताकि आप बर्नआउट स्टेज तक ना पहुंचो. तो इसमें आप क्या कर सकते हो? अपने आप को सैटरडे संडे को फ्री रखिए, वॉच अ मूवी, शॉपिंग जाइए, सेफ्टी प्रिकॉशंस रखते हुए अपने बच्चों के साथ क्वालिटी टाइम स्पेंड कीजिए. अभी आप मैं आगे शेयर करूंगी व्हाट क्वालिटी टाइम मीन्स. ओके, you need to go to the parlor, do some hair coloring, talk to your friends and family, go meet your parents in their homes if you live away from them, right? Go for a walk, go for a run, yoga kijiye, meditation, whatever makes you happy. Keep those 2 days or 1 day of the week for yourself. This will help you to get rejuvenated for the next coming week, और आप ज्यादा pumped up feel करेंगे. Okay, अब दो ऐसे तरीके के स्ट्रेस भी होते हैं जो हम ज्यादातर डिजास्टर सिचुएशन पे देखते हैं, जैसे कि कोविड. ओके, so the first one is critical incident stress. This results from exposure to a critical incident. Now everyone knows that January 2020 was the year when we faced the COVID pandemic first wave. Okay, I had my birthday in February 20 on February 26th, and I was not aware something like this might happen. I had an exam in March, और अचानक से मार्च में एक हफ्ते पहले ही मेरे एग्जाम से पहले लॉकडाउन लग गया. अब ये एक सडन स्टॉप था. दिस वाज समथिंग दैट वाज वेरी वियर्ड, और ये ज्यादातर हम नेचुरल डिजास्टर्स में देखते हैं, राइट? हम अपनी जिंदगी में चल रहे होते हैं, लेकिन कब बाढ़ आ जाए, कब फ्लड आ जाए, कब अर्थक्वेक आ जाए, वी डोंट नो द टाइमिंग. So when something so sudden hits us, हमें इतना डिस्ट्रप्टिव होता है कि हमारी जिंदगी को उथल पुथल करने की पावर रखता है, तब हमको क्रिटिकल इंसिडेंट स्ट्रेस होता है. एंड दिस काइंड ऑफ स्ट्रेस इज वेरी वेरी डेंजरस, क्योंकि इसमें हमें अपनी जान का खतरा होता है, अपना मेंटल हेल्थ का खतरा होता है, फाइनेंसिस का खतरा होता है. एवरीथिंग इज एट स्टेक व्हेन वी आर अंडर क्रिटिकल इंसिडेंट स्ट्रेस, राइट? एंड alongside there is another kind which is called secondary traumatization. ये हमने ज्यादातर देखा जब कोविड के टाइम पे जो इमरजेंसी वर्कर्स होते हैं, या कोई भी डिजास्टर के टाइम पे, वो रेस्क्यू टीम वाले लोग हो, डॉक्टर्स, पीडियाट्रिशियंस, काउंसलर्स, अलग अलग तरीके के लोग जो काम करते हैं, अपने आसपास इतना ट्रॉमा, इतना ग्रीफ, इतनी डेथ्स, इतना पेन देखते हैं ना, तो ऑटोमेटिकली वो ट्रॉमा उनके ऊपर भी असर करता है, और इसलिए इसको कहते हैं सेकेंडरी ट्रॉमेटाइजेशन. दैट यू आर द सेकेंडरी पर्सन हु इज रिसीविंग दिस ट्रॉमेटाइजेशन फ्रॉम द प्राइमरी पर्सन. ओके, एंड हमने कोविड के टाइम पे सल्यूट किया इन डॉक्टर्स को, इन इमरजेंसी वर्कर्स को, हु वर स्टैंडिंग बिसाइड अस, हु डिड देयर बेस्ट, दे डिड नॉट गो टू देयर बैक टू देयर फैमिलीज। आई एम श्योर यहाँ पे शायद कुछ ऐसे कम्युनिटी सोशल वर्क या इमरजेंसी मेडिकल टीम के लोग होंगे हु फेस दिस, एंड आई हाईली हाईली अप्रिशिएट योर एफर्ट्स। बट मैं आपको ये भी बताना चाहती हूँ दैट दीज पीपल ऑल्सो सफर, दे ऑल्सो हैड मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज, एंड सेकेंडरी ट्रॉमेटाइजेशन वॉज वन ऑफ देम। Now, coming to the main part of my presentation, this was all about the basic concepts. I would like to first talk about how our children were impacted during the lockdown. ऐसा क्या हुआ लॉकडाउन या कोविड के टाइम पे, या अभी भी ऐसा क्या हो रहा है जिससे हमारे बच्चों की मेंटल हेल्थ पे असर हो रहा है। एंड ये मैं सिर्फ कोविड सिचुएशन के बारे में ही नहीं, हम किसी भी डिजास्टर के बारे में बात करें जहाँ पे हमको हमारी रिसोर्सेज छिन जाती हैं, तो उसका बच्चों पे कैसे असर होता है, मैं वो बात करने वाली हूँ। Also, I'm just checking any queries or comments that you're putting up. So just if you have any questions or anything, just keep messaging in the chat box and I will take your questions later. तो कोविड के टाइम पे बच्चों का सोशल इंटरेक्शन छूटा, लैक ऑफ सोशल इंटरेक्शन, the friends or the teachers or the counselors in schools they were so attached to, they used to interact regularly, were suddenly taken away. You will be receiving more presentations today, training today on school closures, and you will see how that has impacted the mental health of children. Second was isolation. Even though they were in a house, they were with their family, isolation is a huge, has been a huge factor to um, leading to a rise in anxiety levels and depression levels. Okay, lack of communication, the physical communication, one-on-one talking with somebody from your friends or your school teachers or your anyone from your social circle was also lost, because of which the children felt completely isolated and bored. Okay, this impacted their mental health a huge deal. Lack of physical activity. Now, for children, physical activity is vital, right? In the growing years, अगर बच्चे को proper physical stimulation ना मिले, physical activity का exposure ना मिले, तो उनकी physical growth नहीं होगी, and वो हमारी mental health से directly linked है. तो जो बच्चे छोटे हैं अभी, इनफैक्ट मैं टीनेजर्स की भी बात करूंगी, who do not even not, if I were to just give you something, tell you something, that even covid time से भी अगर हम हट के बात करें, तो आजकल की जो generation है, they are not focusing on the physical activities, and that is causing a lot of disturbances in the cognitions and behavioral patterns of these children. They want to sit at home, they want to sit in front of the screens, and they want to just click ऑल डे, वीडियो गेम्स खेलना, पबजी खेलना, या फिर सोशल मीडिया का इस्तेमाल करना, वो सिर्फ वो करना चाहते हैं। एंड शायद इसका अभी गलत डिसएडवांटेज इन्हें अभी ना पता चले, बट इन द कमिंग फ्यूचर दे विल, द इम्यूनिटी डज नॉट गेट बेटर, the physical health does not get better, and it will impact them later on. Lack of social support system. Like I said, not every child's family is perfect, right? कभी कभी बच्चों का सपोर्ट सिस्टम उनके दादा दादी नाना नानी होते थे, राइट? और कोविड की वजह से, घर में बंद रहने की वजह से, बच्चों को उनसे मिलने का मौका नहीं मिलता था। कोई रिलेटिव, कोई कजन ब्रदर या कोई सिस्टर जो अब शायद कहीं हॉस्टल में रह रही है, वो भी वहां फंसी हुई है, तो बच्चों के लिए वो सपोर्ट, लैक ऑफ सपोर्ट सिस्टम भी उनके ऊपर बहुत असर डाल रहा था। Unsure about the future. These apprehensions about the future have ruined so many lives. Children are moving towards suicide because उनको समझ नहीं आ रहा कि हमने जो ये 2 साल घर में बैठ के ऑनलाइन ट्रेनिंग करी है, ऑनलाइन पढ़ाई करी है, उसका क्या महत्व है? What is the importance? Nobody will consider us as important because online classes are not considered to be as impactful as face-to-face classes. So there are a lot of students who are suffering from this kind of fear. लैक ऑफ कॉग्निटिव स्टिमुलेशन, जैसे कि हम क्लियरली जानते हैं कि क्लासरूम्स में एक डिसिप्लिन होता था, देयर यूज्ड टू बी सम सॉर्ट ऑफ टाइमिंग फॉर एवरी क्लास. द चिल्ड्रन हैव नॉट एक्सपीरियंस दैट सिंस अ लॉन्ग टाइम. सो घर में ऑनलाइन क्लासेस होने की वजह से उनका रूटीन डैमेज हुआ, जिसकी वजह से कहीं ना कहीं उनकी कॉग्निशंस पे भी असर पड़ा. लैक ऑफ एक्सटर्नल एक्सपोजर. नॉट बीइंग एबल टू गो आउट, नॉट बीइंग एबल टू सी द वर्ल्ड। बच्चों को आउटिंग्स के लिए लेके जाया जाता था, उनको फिजिकल एक्टिविटी कराई जाती थी इन पार्क्स, इन जिम्स, इन दे यूज्ड टू प्ले अ लॉट ऑफ गेम्स, टीम एक्टिविटीज। ऑल दीज थिंग्स वर आल्सो टेकन अवे ड्यूरिंग द कोविड लॉकडाउन। अब कुछ और सिवियर चीजें हुई कोविड के दौरान, जैसे कि डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस वेंट अप अ ह्यूज बिट. It was reported by WHO that 1 out of 3 women were facing domestic violence during the COVID period. And इसका डायरेक्ट इम्पैक्ट पड़ता है फैमिली लाइफ के ऊपर, जहाँ पे डिसरप्ट होता है. Constantly there is a grim vibe in the house, and that stops the child from being happy. Also, sometimes when there is physical abuse, the child gets in the middle. वो वहां फंस जाता है, एंड उसकी भी कभी कभी पिटाई हो जाती है, जिसकी वजह से उसकी मेंटल हेल्थ पे बहुत सिवियर असर पड़ता है. Now, toxic relationships, teenagers, young adults who have been living away from their families, some of them are living in live-in relationships with their partners. They have also experienced a lot of domestic violence or abuse, not just females, but also males. And during COVID, people have been having issues of, there have been reports of sexual abuse or harassment cases, जहाँ पे कहते हैं non consent से किसी ने उनके ऊपर सेक्सुअली फोर्स किया. तो कोविड के टाइम पे ये चीजें बहुत ज्यादा प्रेवलेंस में आई. Like I said, sexual abuse does not just happen with adults, it can also happen to young children. फैमिलीज जो अपनी वापस अपने गांव गए या अपने दूसरी जॉइंट फैमिलीज के पास गए, वहां पे कजन्स थे, अंकल्स एंड आंटीज. सो व्हेन यू आर अमंग सो मेनी पीपल, समटाइम्स द चाइल्ड गेट्स अवे, एंड यंग cousins or relatives in the house tend to use the child in very compromising ways. एंड कभी कभी बच्चा इतना मोलेस्ट हो जाता है, बच्चे को इतना अब्यूज, सेक्सुअली अब्यूज किया जाता है, उसको इतना डरा दिया जाता है कि वो अपने पेरेंट्स के पास जाकर ये बातें बता नहीं पाता. एंड बिलीव इट और नॉट, a lot of abuse, sexual abuse or rapes happen from home. It is very shocking, but it does. And the reason why the child is unable to report these cases is कि उसको डराया जाता है कि तुम्हारे मम्मी पापा मर जाएंगे, या फिर तुमको मैं कुछ कर दूंगा, तुम्हारी तुम कोई सुनेगा नहीं क्योंकि मैं तुम्हारे चाचा लगता हूँ या कजन लगता हूँ. So that is why these cases are not reported, because families think that their name will be ruined. And during COVID, there have been a lot of reports of such cases. Finally, suicidal tendencies was another psychological issue faced by young children. And I would like to show that with a few newspaper clippings. This is a clipping from 26 October 2020, which is not quite, it's almost a year late, but in Kerala, a lot of suicide cases were reported. 154 children were found hanging. Remaining had consumed poison and set themselves on fire ablaze. अब इमेजिन कीजिए कि आप किचन में काम कर रहे हैं और आपका हाथ कट जाता है, किसी रीजन से आपकी फिंगर पे कट लग जाता है, या आप गैस के ऊपर अपना हाथ जला देते हैं. हाउ मच पेन डू यू फील? हाउ मच पेन? इट इज एक्सक्रूशिएटिंग. यू कैन नॉट वर्क एनी फर्दर, है ना. इमीडिएटली हम दवाई लगाते हैं. अब सोचिए कि एक बच्चे में इतनी हिम्मत कहाँ से आती है कि वो अपने आप को जला सके, या वो अपने आप को पॉइजन दे सके, या वो अपने आप को किसी तरीके से हार्म कर सके. I still don't understand how can a child be in so much pain कि वो अपने आप को खुद नुकसान पहुंचा सके. लेकिन सच्चाई ये है that suicide cases have gone up a huge bit. And when I talk about these young children, मैं teenagers की बात नहीं कर रही हूँ. I am talking about children who are school going, who are from the age of 8 to 12 years. So imagine these children committing suicide on a daily basis. And now यहाँ न्यूज़पेपर क्लिपिंग सिर्फ केरला गवर्नमेंट की बात कर रही है, वो इसलिए बिकॉज केरला वाज वन ऑफ द स्टेट्स, फर्स्ट फ्यू स्टेट्स जिसने इसके ऊपर एक्शन लिया. बट हमारे पूरे देश में ऐसे बहुत सारे सुसाइड केसेस हो रहे हैं जो कि रिपोर्ट भी नहीं हो रहे हैं. 10,000 स्टूडेंट सुसाइड पर ईयर इन इंडिया, जिसमें से 1400 पर ईयर महाराष्ट्र से हैं. सो इफ दिस इज हैपनिंग पर ईयर, और अब कोविड की सिचुएशन वर्स होते होते आई एम श्योर अभी बेटर हो रही है, लेकिन क्या हम इसको संभाल पाए हैं? दैट इज व्हाई इवन आवर प्राइम मिनिस्टर is slightly more inclined towards working on mental health. वो motivate करते हैं to talk about mental health, awareness create करते हैं, stigma को हम break करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. That is why NIDM is also very very inclined towards creating awareness on mental health of children. अब क्या होता है कि एज पेरेंट्स हम ये चीज ऑब्जर्व नहीं कर पाते, तो मैं यहाँ पे आपको कुछ टिप्स एंड ट्रिक्स बताऊंगी इन विच यू कैन ऑब्जर्व योर चाइल्ड वेदर द चाइल्ड इज मेंटली स्ट्रेस्ड और नॉट, एंड वेदर योर चाइल्ड नीड्स हेल्प, वेदर यू नीड टू चेंज समथिंग एट होम जिससे वो ज्यादा रिलैक्स रहे, ज्यादा खुश रहना शुरू करे. तो आप 3 तरीकों से अपने बच्चे को ऑब्जर्व कर सकते हैं. एक है थॉट्स के थ्रू, उनकी बिहेवियर के थ्रू, और एक उनके मूड या इमोशंस को ऑब्जर्व करके. अब जब हम बच्चों के इमोशंस को ऑब्जर्व करते हैं तो कई दफा हम उनमें एंगर आउटबर्स्ट देखते हैं, जहाँ पे बच्चा चिल्ला रहा है, मार रहा है, चीजें तोड़ रहा है घर में, दे आर नॉट ओबेइंग देयर पेरेंट्स, दे आर यूजिंग अब्यूसिव वर्ड, बैड माउथिंग और फाइटिंग अलॉट. सो दीज, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, इमोशनल चेंजेस जो होते हैं वो हमारे टेम्पररी भी हो सकते हैं. ठीक है, लेट्स से किसी की बच्चे की घर में भाई से लड़ाई हुई, तो वो गुस्सा है, वो ये एंगर आउटबर्स्ट शो कर रहा है. इसका मतलब ये नहीं है दैट योर चाइल्ड इज मेंटली स्ट्रेस्ड और ही इज सफरिंग फ्रॉम सम सॉर्ट ऑफ साइकोलॉजिकल इलनेस. लेकिन अगर ये इमोशंस परसिस्ट करते हैं, लाइक द चाइल्ड हैज बीन फीलिंग लो, द चाइल्ड्स मूड हैज बीन फ्लक्चुएटिंग कॉन्स्टेंटली फॉर 2 वीक्स, वो ठीक ही नहीं हो रहा है, देन इट मीन्स कि आपके बच्चे को कोई चीज अंदर से परेशान कर रही है. इट इज टाइम कि आप उससे बात कीजिए. हाँ, क्योंकि इमोशंस कभी कभी फ्लक्चुएट करते हैं सिचुएशंस के हिसाब से, तो आपको यहाँ पे स्मार्ट होना पड़ेगा कि क्या कॉज है उसके इमोशनल चेंजेस का. सो बी स्मार्ट पेरेंट्स, नॉट, ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए आप घर गए, आपका बच्चा लड़ाई कर रहा है तो आप सोचे ओ मेरे बच्चे को एंग्जाइटी हो सकती है, मेरे बच्चे को कुछ स्ट्रेस हो सकता है जिसकी वजह से. नहीं, observe over a period of time and then you see whether your child needs special help or something at home can be done or not. Okay, and that other emotions that you can focus on are sadness. सैडनेस अगर लंबे समय तक चले तो डिप्रेशन का भी एक सिम्टम हो सकती है. ठीक है, उसके साथ साथ और बहुत और भी सिम्टम्स होते हैं. इरिटेबिलिटी, चिड़चिड़ापन होना, बहुत ज्यादा रोना, बात बात पे रो देना, fear of stepping out or interacting with others, and jealousy. कुछ बिहेवियरल सिम्टम्स भी आप नोटिस कर सकते हैं, जैसे आइसोलेशन में रहना. जब सब घर में साथ में बैठते हैं, खाना खाते थे, बच्चा बहुत इंजॉय करता था, बट अचानक से उसने सेपरेटेड रहना शुरू कर दिया. ही डज नॉट वांट टू टॉक टू एनीवन, सो दैट मीन्स समथिंग इज गोइंग ऑन इन द चाइल्ड्स माइंड. लैक ऑफ स्लीप, या तो बच्चा बहुत ज्यादा सो रहा है या बहुत कम सो रहा है, उसको रात को बुरे सपने आ रहे हैं, या फिर उसकी एनर्जी लेवल डाउन हो गया है जिसकी वजह से वो बहुत ज्यादा सो रहा है. उसकी एपेटाइट में चेंजेस आ सकते हैं, जैसे कि खाना ज्यादा खाने लगा स्ट्रेस की वजह से, या कम खा रहा है क्योंकि उसका मन नहीं कर रहा है. ठीक है, इसके कारण स्लीप और ईटिंग पैटर्न्स में चेंजेस आने की वजह से उसकी एनर्जी लेवल्स भी फ्लक्चुएट करेंगे, जिसमें वो ज्यादातर थका हुआ फील करेगा. कई बच्चे उदास या दुखी होते हैं मन से, तो वो अपने पेरेंट्स की एक्स्ट्रा अटेंशन सीख करते हैं, इसको कहते हैं क्लिंगीनेस. तो कॉन्स्टेंटली एक्सपेक्ट करेगा कि मेरी मम्मी मुझे गोदी में लेके रखे या मेरे पापा मुझे प्यार करे. राइट. इनअटेंटिवनेस, पढ़ाई के अंदर ग्रेड्स गिरना, आप कुछ फोकस करने वाला काम कर रहे हैं, बच्चे का अटेंशन नहीं बन पा रहा है. स्ट्रगलिंग टू कंडक्ट सिंपल एक्टिविटीज, जैसे कि नहाना, खाना खाना, शू लेसेस बांधना, बाहर खेलने जाना. दीज थिंग्स कैन बिकम ह्यूज चैलेंजेस फॉर चिल्ड्रन हु आर मेंटली स्ट्रेस्ड. ओके, फिजिकली वीक और सेल्फ हार्म इज अनदर सिम्टम, जहाँ पे फिजिकली वीक होने की वजह से आप बच्चे की हड्डियां निकल आती हैं, कभी कभी वो अपने आप को नुकसान पहुंचाते हैं. ये डिप्रेशन में बहुत एक कॉमन सिनेरियो है. फिर आती है कॉग्निटिव फंक्शनिंग को आप नोटिस कर सकते हैं, जैसे कि उसकी मेमोरी का डिटीरियोरेशन होना, चीजें याद ना रहना, एकेडमिक्स में डाउनफॉल आना, वो अपनी लैंग्वेज का ढंग से ग्रोथ नहीं हो रही है, वो बात नहीं कर रहा है, तो ही इज नॉट एबल टू कम्युनिकेट द राइट इमोशंस टू यू. डिक्रीज इन लर्निंग स्पीड, इनएबिलिटी टू सॉल्व कॉम्प्लेक्स प्रॉब्लम्स एंड डिसीजन मेकिंग में बहुत इफेक्ट होता है. अब अगर यही सिम्टम्स सही वक्त पे ना संभाले जाएं तो ये लॉन्ग टर्म साइकोलॉजिकल डिसऑर्डर्स भी बन सकते हैं, जैसे कि एंजाइटी. और आई विल बी शेयरिंग द प्रेजेंटेशन, तो मैं इसके बारे में ज्यादा डिटेल में बात नहीं करूंगी, because I want to focus on one very important thing. Then there is depression. Depression भी एक long term disorder हो सकता है, and हाँ, बच्चों में भी डिप्रेशन होता है, बच्चों में भी स्किज़ोफ्रेनिया होता है. So do not think that children cannot suffer from disorders. They can also suffer from major disorders. What are the things that you can do at home? कुछ चीजें ऐसी भी है जो आप घर में कर सकते हैं, अपनी फैमिली इन्वायरमेंट में कर सकते हैं, जिससे बच्चा अगर साइकोलॉजिकल कंसर्न्स फेस कर भी रहा है तो वो घर की रेमेडी से ही ठीक हो सकता है. ओके, फर्स्ट थिंग इज बी अवेयर ऑफ योर चाइल्ड्स इमोशनल एंड फिजिकल नीड्स बाय गिविंग देम अप्रोप्रिएट अटेंशन एंड क्वालिटी टाइम. घर में मदर्स होती हैं, कहती है मैम मैं तो 24 घंटे घर में होती हूँ, मेरे को तो कुछ नहीं नजर आया. फिजिकल प्रेजेंस होना एक अलग बात होती है, और बच्चे के लिए इमोशनली अवेलेबल होना इज ऑल्सो डिफरेंट थिंग. सो ट्राई टू बी अवेयर कि आपका बच्चा क्या फील कर रहा है. दैट यू कैन ओनली डू बाय हैविंग एन ओपन कम्युनिकेशन, अ वेरी पॉजिटिव रिलेशनशिप विद योर चाइल्ड. बच्चे से बात कीजिए, और जब वो अपने इमोशंस को एक्सप्रेस करे, चाहे वो जेलसी हो, गुस्सा हो, उसको सुनिए. बी गुड लिसनर्स. Otherwise, if you are always acting as a parent and giving them orders, they will never share their personal thoughts with you. Act as a counselor, act as a good listener, as a friend. Okay. Now make interactions intellectual by educating them about current scenarios and updating them. कभी भी ये नहीं सोचना कि मेरा बच्चा छोटा है तो उसको ये इन्फॉर्मेशन जानने की जरूरत नहीं है. हाँ, कुछ इन्फॉर्मेशन ऐसी होती है जो बच्चे शायद ना अब्सॉर्ब कर सकें, तो आप उसको फिल्टर आउट कर सकते हैं. बट जैसे कोविड सिचुएशन है, स्कूल्स का ओपनिंग, स्कूल का क्लोजर्स, बहुत सारी इन्फॉर्मेशन ऐसी है जो पेरेंट्स अपने बच्चों को एजुकेट कर सकते हैं जिसको लेकर. ऐसा करने से दे विल हैव गुड ट्रस्ट ऑन यू एंड योर कम्युनिकेशन विल गेट बेटर. देयर शुड ऑलवेज बी अ सेफ्टी नेट फॉर योर चाइल्ड. अगर आपसे वो कोई चीज शेयर नहीं कर पा रहा है, आपने एक स्पाइडर वेब देखा होगा ना, एक नेट जो होता है, उसके बिल्कुल सेंटर में एक बहुत ही क्लोज सर्कल होता है, एंड देन द नेट कीप्स एक्सपैंडिंग. सो द नेट का जो सेंटर पोर्शन होता है बच्चे के लिए, वो उसके पेरेंट्स होते हैं. नाउ लेट्स अज्यूम बच्चे के लिए पेरेंट्स आर नॉट सफिशिएंट, वो बच्चे अब पेरेंट्स से शेयर नहीं कर रहा है. ही मूव्स टू द सेकंड स्टेप, जो कि उसके सिबलिंग्स हैं, या उसके दादा दादी या नाना नानी. फिर वो बाहर जाता है, उसके चाचा चाची या फिर जो कोई डिस्टेंट रिलेटिव्स हैं, उसके बाद उससे बाहर जाएगा तो उसके दोस्त, एंड फाइनली उसकी टीचर्स, काउंसलर्स या प्रिंसिपल, एंड देन लास्ट में आती है पुलिस या फिर कोई एक्सटर्नल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो उसकी हेल्प कर सके. तो ये सेफ्टी नेट बच्चे के पास होना बहुत जरूरी है, सो दैट कल को उसको किसी चीज की नीड हुई और उसके पेरेंट्स फॉर सम रीजन अवेलेबल नहीं है, तो वो किसी पे रिलाई कर सके. राइट. एक्सपोजर टू आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड इज इम्पोर्टेंट. कभी कभी उनको बाहर घुमाने लेके जाना, पार्क में टहलना, ऐसा करने से देयर माइंड विल बी फ्री एंड दे विल फील स्लाइटली मोर रिलैक्स्ड. Maintain a family balanced environment. If your family environment is not healthy, your child will not grow. बहुत सिंपल फंडा है. आपका बच्चा एक बीज की तरह है, एक सीड की तरह है. आप उस सीड को जितना अच्छे से पानी देंगे, धूप लगाएंगे, हवा देंगे, उतना अच्छा वो ग्रो करेगा. उसका एनवायरनमेंट पॉजिटिव होगा, the child will also be psychologically healthy. Try to connect them with their friends. कभी कभी वीडियो कॉल करा दी, कभी कभी फ्रेंड से मिलवा दिया, क्योंकि घर में सिर्फ पेरेंट्स के साथ रहना is also not easy for a child. Okay, they also need to communicate with their social circle. Try to limit passive activities by increasing outdoor and physical activities and making a timetable. One thing that disturbed the mental health of every human being was the disturbance in routine. रूटीन जब खराब हुआ ना, तो इंसान का सारा एक जो बेस होता है उसकी लाइफ का, वो हिल गया. एंड दैट कॉज्ड अ लॉट ऑफ एंजाइटी, क्योंकि हमारा पूरे दिन में कोई गोल नहीं होता था. एंड जब बच्चे के साथ भी ऐसा होता है ना, ही विल स्टार्ट फीलिंग हेल्पलेस और वर्थलेस. सो ट्राई टू कीप योर चाइल्ड इन अ टाइम टेबल, इन अ रूटीन. जैसे वो स्कूल जाता था तो उसका एक रूटीन होता था, वैसे ही घर में भी एक रूटीन होना चाहिए. दिस विल मेक थिंग्स इजियर फॉर यू एंड द चाइल्ड ऑल्सो. If you have time, then you can do some activities at home. कुकिंग सिखा सकते हैं, डेली चोर्स कर सकते हैं बच्चे के साथ, एक्स्ट्रा करिकुलर एक्टिविटीज या इंडोर एक्टिविटीज भी कर सकते हैं. एंड कॉम्प्लेक्स कॉग्निटिव एक्टिविटी सच एज पजल, सुडोकू, जिससे बच्चे का माइंड कॉन्स्टेंटली वर्क करता रहे. Another thing you can do is build new skills. One very important skill जो आज के टाइम पे important है वो है reading skills. Okay, यहाँ पे बेस्ट अपॉर्चुनिटी है वोकैबुलरी एंड लैंग्वेज डेवलपमेंट करने की. जितना ज्यादा बच्चा अच्छे से अपने आप को एक्सप्रेस कर पाएगा उतना मेंटली एंड फिजिकली हेल्दी वो रह पाएगा. कंट्रोल इनअप्रोप्रिएट बिहेवियर एट होम. अगर आप घर में अग्रेसिव हो रहे हैं, वायलेंट हो रहे हैं, तो वही चीज आपका बच्चा सीख रहा है बिकॉज यू आर देयर रोल मॉडल्स. अगर आप अपने बच्चे से उम्मीद करते हैं दैट वो एक सर्टेन वे में बिहेव करे, देन यू नीड टू act as good people. You need to act as good models because the child is learning from his parents. Celebrations are important. Family में important है कि कोई भी खुशी का टाइम होता है तो वो सेलिब्रेट किया जाए. Every small celebration brings hope, brings optimism in the family, and that will create a very good family environment. It will bring you closer to your children. Be mindful according to whatever your child needs, not just physically, not just materialistically. अगर आपका बच्चा आपकी attention seek कर रहा है, अगर वो आपको कुछ बताना चाहता है, तो mindful रहिए. Be present in the moment. ऐसा नहीं है कि quality time spend कर रहे हो, बच्चे के साथ बास्केटबॉल या कुछ खेल रहे हो तो आप फोन पे लगे हुए हो, बार बार फोन कॉल्स आ रहे हैं. Be there with your child in the moment. Okay. Finally, if the issues or the symptoms exceed, अगर वो आपके हाथ से निकलते जा रहे हैं और घर में ये चीजें करने से भी बच्चे के बिहेवियर या उसकी इमोशंस में सुधार नहीं आ रहा है, it is good to seek help from professionals. And if you need any kind of student counseling, if you need some counseling services, so NCRT की website, you can take a screenshot of this slide. There is a link on the NCERT website where they provide a full database of counselors जो कि आप अपने region के हिसाब से select कर सकते हो, and then you can call them. This is absolutely free services, so try calling sometime if your child needs some sort of help, professional help. ठीक है? And with that, I finish my presentation. I hope I have not exceeded my time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Namrata, for a very informative presentation and addressing the persisting challenges that the families have been facing in past 2 years and are still facing right now, and recommending ways to protect and safeguard the mental health of children during these crises. So moving further, we have some questions in the chat box, in the question answer box, so I'll read it out for you. So one question is, I'll read it out as it is. Can you throw some light on the mental health issues faced by the children from low income family groups, marginalized children, especially female?
Okay. So I'm not sure whether you're asking about the issues that they face.
Mental health issues, yes.
Okay. So when we talk about different areas of the society, sectors of the society, there is not much difference because psychological issues of every that a child faces can vary from their family background to their financial status to different kinds of resources that they have around. So let's assume a child is living in a very poverty struck area जहाँ पे बच्ची को स्कूल नहीं भेजा जाता है. If you're talking about girls, the child is not able to go to school. उसको कोविड की वजह से ड्रॉप आउट करवा दिया गया है. She's forced to get married now. The psychological issues that might arise would be that she is forced to get married to an older person, या उसकी शादी हो भी जाती है एक यंग लड़के से तो उसे फोर्स किया जाता है to get pregnant at a very young age. So teen pregnancies are a huge issue. So here women tend to go into depression. ओके लड़कियों को डिप्रेशन हो जाता है, कई लड़कियां साइकोटिक भी हो जाती हैं क्योंकि उनके ऊपर डोमेस्टिक वायलेंस ज्यादा होता है. सो क्या होता है ना, जब आपकी सोशल इश्यूज जो होते हैं वो कहीं ना कहीं आपके पर्सनल इश्यूज के ऊपर इम्पैक्ट करते हैं, वो साइकोलॉजिकल इश्यूज में कन्वर्ट हो जाते हैं. सो ये 3-4 चीजें साइड बाय साइड चलती है जहाँ पे आपकी फाइनेंशियल, सोशल और साइकोलॉजिकल स्टेटस equally impact होते हैं. Again, coming back to my point, so these girls might suffer from psychotic disorders. We receive a lot of girls or from in our shelter homes जो बहुत young age में pregnant हो जाती हैं, and they also suffer from postpartum depression. Now, about young girls who are not getting married or are just at home, they are forced to work at home, or they are unable to reach out to the correct help अगर उनके पेरेंट्स उनको अब्यूज कर रहे हैं या उनके साथ गलत domestic violence कर रहे हैं. These women tend to acquire anxiety issues over time and depression, of course. उसके अलावा they some women, all these girls, वो अपने घर के बाहर attention seek करती हैं, जिसकी वजह से they might get into toxic relationship with other boys. So here also these girls are prone to domestic violence again, and all the other psychological issues associated with this kind of violence. तो जब हम लड़कियों को awareness create करने की बात करें, it is good that we focus on such issues such as contraceptions, what can they do in case they are getting married, what are the laws against childhood marriage or toxic relationships, who to trust, whom not to trust. In case you are a teacher or a community worker, these are the things that you can educate their parents also about. Okay, and also how you can motivate them into opening small scale businesses at home, going for classes, sticking to online classes even though they are not face to face, because they need to know that online classes or not online classes, you will ultimately get the degree, you will ultimately be a 12th pass, it will help you in future. तो ये कुछ चीजें आप उन्हें मोटिवेट कर सकते हैं फ्यूचर के लिए.
Thank you, ma'am. So there is another question, or probably I would say that someone has discussed her own problem that she's facing at present. So she says, my family is suffering from financial problem at present, and I'm only 18 years old, and I need to buy a phone for taking online classes, but I'm not able to buy it. So she's missing out on her education and her classes because of the shift to the digital sort of platform. So what
Okay,
will
I
you,
think I would answer
Vidisha?
this question here, but I think Vidisha,
Yes.
I will share my number with you and or my email ID. Just email me, ठीक है? और मैं आपसे वहाँ पे डिस्कस करूंगी, क्योंकि यहाँ पे I think we need to go to the next sessions
Yes.
also, and ये personal query है, तो मैं आपको
Right.
personally answer करूंगी. I am sharing my email ID in the chat box. Do connect with me. I'll drop my Instagram link also in case you are not able to send an email to me. Okay? Yeah.
I think that should help. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was so nice
Welcome.
to have you here. If we have some other questions for her, so I'll request the participants to kindly drop in the question answer box. Meanwhile, we'll move on to the other sessions. Um so moving further, the next two sessions will be taken up by Dr. Balu, who's a PhD in sociology with an extensive development and research experience. He has coordinated national level workshops and training programs in various themes and is currently working in the CCDR unit at NIDM. The topic of the second session is basic concepts of disaster risk management. I will now hand over the platform to Dr. Balu and request him to kindly share his valuable views on the subject. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Ms. Manika. Can you enable me to share my screen?
Yes, sir, sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you. Hope my screen visible.
Yes, sir, it's visible. If you can switch to the full screen mode, yes. Absolutely fine.
Yeah. Once again, very good morning to all the participants. I hope you all enjoy this session with Ms. Namrata ma'am, as all the participants enjoy this session. And today we are going to now discuss about the basic concepts of disaster risk management. You may attend any type of disaster risk management program, but you need to understand the basic concepts and terminologies have been used in the disaster risk reduction. I'm just stopping my video since my internet connectivity is poor. We are in the remote area for some other programs, so I'll just speak over here. So since we are having two sessions here today, so we will divide the session into 40 minutes each session, and we have a 5 minutes discussion for each session, right? So in the first session, we'll be having the basic concepts, like we are going to discuss that what is disaster and hazard, what is the difference between disaster and hazard, and disaster risk, vulnerability, mitigation, preparedness, prevention. And if time permits, I'll touch all the terminologies. Otherwise, some important terminologies we will be discussing here. So starting with the hazard, let's first understand what is hazard. Hazard is nothing but a process or phenomena or activity that may cause a loss of life or injury or other health impacts to the any human being or a society. Right? I'll be giving an explanation for the definition, as well as I will also give a pictorial explanation, followed by I'll give some examples so that you can easily understand. Now let's take like a flood or earthquake or landslide or drought. When it happens, there is a definitely loss of life sometime, and some people may got injury, and there is a chance for another health impacts, like a child standing or child of being underweight, right? So because of that process or phenomena or any activity, if the people are lost their life or getting an injury, then it is called just a hazard. Now I'm moving to the disaster. After discussing disaster, let's discuss the difference between hazard and disaster so that you can easily understand. The hazards may be natural or anthropogenic in origin. Basically, we have two types of hazards. One is man-made and natural, as you may all aware related to the basic things, right? So coming to the disaster, disaster is a serious disruption of the functions of a community or a society at any scale because of the hazardous event. As we discussed, like hazard is like a flood or earthquake or landslide, drought, cyclone, right? Because of that hazardous event, if our day-to-day life is disrupted or if it is affected, then it's become a disaster. I'll just give an example. Before COVID-19, we all were regularly going to the schools, colleges, and office. Our routine life was smoothly going. But after COVID-19, what happened? Our routine life has been affected. It's disaster because we were not able to go to office. We are not able to even go out of the home, where our movement was restricted. So because of the hazardous event, when our routine life, our day-to-day functions are being disrupted, then it is called disaster. Similarly, take an example of cyclone Fonia, cyclone Kaja. Because of that, the routine life of the people have been affected. So it's become a disaster. Assuming that there is a earthquake in the 7.5 Richter scale, then if it happens in any major city, the entire city will be destroyed. And their routine life may be disrupted. Then it's become a disaster, right? And it's all happened because due to the hazardous events, and it is also has a conditions with exposure, vulnerability, and capacity, which you will understand what is exposure, vulnerability, and capacity and all, right? And it also lead to one or more of the following, like a human, material, economic, and environmental losses and the impacts. When disaster happens, of course, our routine life is affected. At the same time, there is a loss of human being. Take a reference of COVID-19, large number of people have been died, and material losses and economic losses, our GDP has come down. You take an example of cyclone. What is the loss of material? Can anyone type me in the chat box? When cyclone happens, what kind of material losses we are facing? I request all the participants to type in the chat box. We can see that like the roads may be damaged, and the school buildings and public assets, that all may be damaged. That is a material loss. And environmental losses, of course, because of that, the trees may be also fell down, right? And when earthquake happens, again, there is environmental losses. So the disaster is when, because of the hazardous event, when our routine life is being disrupted, then it's become a disaster. And it also has a leading to the different losses, like a human or any one loss or multiple losses may be there, right? And see this picture. There is a small mountain, and from the top of the mountain, the stone which fell down, so the person has lost his life. So there is a human loss. And again, if the same time, if there is a house, the house also damaged, then it is a material loss, right? So and the routine life of this person is affected. So it's a disaster. Now, coming to the difference between hazard and disaster, because of the hazardous event, there may be a human loss, material loss, or economic loss, and environmental losses, then it is just hazard. But when it leads to the disruption in the routine life, and when it makes the people to expect the support from outside, then it's become a disaster, unless it is just hazard. I hope you all understand the difference between hazard and disaster. So I'm moving on to the next. Now, disaster risk. A question to all the participants. What do you mean by risk? You may type in the chat box. What do you mean by risk? Whatever comes to your top of the mind, you may type. I'm just waiting for all your response. What do you mean by risk? Whatever comes to your mind, you can just type. Don't worry whether it's right or wrong. Okay, you can type. Meantime, I will also continue the session. A risk is nothing but where there is a chance for loss of life or injury or destroy or damaging the asset. It is like a potential for loss of life. Now, we all know that there is a Omicron, and knowing that, and if you are going to enter into the airport, there is a risk of infecting, right? So it's a disaster risk. And similarly, see this picture. There is a mountain and there is a stone on the top. The person who is standing below, there is a stone on the top of the mountain, and even though he is standing here, he knows, or whether he know or may not know, but when the stone fell down, he may lose his life because he's standing. So there is a potential for loss of life. If there is a house also, when the stone fell down, there is a chance for loss of or damaging the assets. So disaster risk is nothing but where there is a potential for loss of life or injury or damage to the assets. I'll give another example. Living in the COVID-19 containment zone, it's a disaster risk. There is a chance for getting infection. And living in the river bund, living in the coastal zone, and we know that there is a chance for cyclone. So it's all, there is a chance for potential loss of life or injury when the cyclone comes. So it's a disaster risk. So it may happen at any specific period of time. Okay, and it is also determined to the probabilistically as the functions of hazard, exposure, and vulnerability and the capacity. Right. So I hope all understood. Can anyone type the example for disaster risk? I have given 2-3 examples. I request all the participants, you may also type in the chat box. Okay. Here they have given fear of losing something. Risk means any kind of insecurity. Okay. War. Yeah. Thank you. So basic thing which we need to understand is where there is a potential for loss of life because of the hazardous event, then there is a risk. I'll give some more example. You know that we should not touch the electric wire, but if you are touching, then it's a risk. There is a chance for loss of your life. Without knowing swimming, you are going to the beach and swimming on the sea. You are taking bath on the sea. It's a risk because you don't know the swimming. So these are all examples for understanding disaster risk. Now, coming to the vulnerability. The vulnerability is the conditions determined by physical, socio-economic, and environmental factors which increase the susceptibility of an individual or community or assets systems to impact of assets. To understand simply, vulnerability is because of these socio-economic and physical conditions, if the impact is increased, then that is vulnerability. Right? Where there is a chance for increasing the susceptibility of the impact of the hazardous event. See this picture, just assume there one normal human being standing under this mountain and also one differently able person is standing on the mountain. When the stone fell down, who is more vulnerable here? Is differently able person or normal human being? I'm sorry to use the word differently able, but just to get an understanding, I'm asking you. So who is most vulnerable here? Of course, the person who is differently able. Because when the stone fell down, the normal person may able to run away, he may able to evacuate himself. But the differently able person may need a support. Because of his differently ableness, his physical condition is more vulnerable. Because the impact may be high. He may not able to evacuate himself. He may not be safe. That is a physical vulnerability. And social economic vulnerability, first I'll give an example. Now take a reference of COVID-19. If you are not able to buy a mask, or if you're not able to buy a sanitizer, if you're not having enough money for this, then it's an economic vulnerability. Because of that economic conditions, you are more vulnerable to COVID-19. Similarly, if you are living in the seashore area, but you don't have a money to, or if you don't have a life jacket or boat, then because of your economic conditions, you are more vulnerable. Because of that economic condition, the impact may be high when cyclone comes. Right? Let me think of some example for social vulnerability. Sometimes if you are not having a support, like for example, you are not in the member of any self-help groups, or if you are not a member of even if you are not having a voting power, or if your name is not in the voter list, and you may not able to get any recovery or any other support which is being given by the government after the disasters, which increase the impact. So it's a social vulnerability. So the conditions determine physical, social, economic, and environmental factors which increase the impact. Similarly, environmental factors. You are forced to live in, you don't have a, in case if you are living in the seashore area or in a river bank, again, because of the environmental situation, you are more vulnerable. In case if you are living in some other area, you are not much vulnerable. But you know that there is a chance for heavy flood in the river, but even though you are living. So it's an environmental factors which increase your vulnerability. So it's simple. By seeing this picture, you can understand if a differently able person, because of his physical condition, is more vulnerable. If the normal person, he may able to evacuate himself. Second, exposure. Exposure is nothing but the situation of people, infrastructure, housing, protection capacities, right? And located in the hazard-prone area. All this exposure and risk and the previous term which we have discussed, it's all having a relationship. Okay, vulnerability and all. Here, if you are living in the COVID-19 containment zones, then you are having a exposure. If you are living in the seashore, or if you are living in the riverbank area, or if you are living in the drought-prone area, then you have exposure to the drought. When hazard occurs, then there is a exposure. When you are living in the drought-prone area, when there is a drought, then have a exposure to the drought. But if there is no drought, then you don't have an exposure and you don't have a risk. See, a group of members were living here. When the stone fell down, they have an exposure to the hazard. If the stone is not fell down, they do not have an exposure to the hazardous event. Okay. Okay, now a question to all the participants. What do you mean by capacity? What do you mean by capacity? Anyone, you may type in the chat box. According to you, what do you mean by capacity? By the time I'll continue, I got one answer from the participants. Let me check. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Pius. Ability, perfect. Thanks for your answer. Anybody? Strength, power, ability. Shika, thank you so much. Good. Okay. Yeah, you all are right. Let me give some explanation to this. Basically, the capacity refers to all the strengths, attributes, and resources. available within the community, organization, society to manage and reduce the disaster risk and strengthen the resilience. Okay, I'll explain each word. Strength you can refer like a skill. If you're having a swimming skill, if you're having a tree climbing skill, if you're having a first aid skill, it's all your strength. It's also a capacity for you, which helps you to reduce the disaster risk and strengthen your resilience. And the attributes, if you know the do's and don'ts of COVID-19, then that is also a capacity for you, which helps you to reduce your risk. You know, you should not enter into the crowded area without mask. That knowledge helps you to reduce your risk. So it's a capacity for you. And similarly, if you know the emergency contact numbers, which helps you to reduce your risk. If someone is in emergency or you're stuck in the flood, you may call immediately. So which helps you to reduce your risk. So the knowledge which you're having, that is also a capacity for you, which helps you to reduce the risk. And the third one is resources. For example, you are living in the flood prone area and you are having a life jacket, you are having a boat, you are having the emergency lights, and you are having the Pakka house. It's all resource for you, which helps you to reduce your flood risk. These are reference to the individuals. Okay, the village which is located in the flood prone area, but your village is having a big lake or tank or canal, which reduces the risk of the village. It is a capacity for the village. Similarly, you may gone to the schools or theaters or malls. You may have seen fire extinguisher, emergency exit, emergency evacuation map. These are all resources for these are the resources and capacity for this particular organization or institution, which helps to reduce the risk. Right? See this picture. The person who is living below, just assume that there is a Pakka house. He is living under the Pakka house, inside Pakka house. So when the stone fell down, the capacity, the house, Pakka house is a capacity for him, which reduces his risk. Only the building may damage, only he may get little injury, but just assume that if there is no Pakka building, then his life may be lost. The impact will be high, the risk will be high. So here the Pakka building, the protection which he is having is a capacity for him. And when you are driving a bike, you are wearing a helmet, you are having a helmet, that is a resource for you, which helps to reduce your risk. Even if you get an accident, your life will be saved. Hope you all understand what you mean by capacity. Okay, now I'm asking a question. Can anyone tell me what kind of resources under capacity? We have three things: strength, attributes, and resources. To reduce the risk of COVID-19, what kind of resources you should have? To reduce the risk of COVID-19, what kind of resources you should have? Let me waiting. I'm just waiting for the answer in the chat box. Okay, I'm asking for an individual. Thank you, Ms. Reina Singh. Sorry, male or female, I'm not sure. Reina Singh, it's a good health center. It's a resource for the nation or for the village or the country. Okay. I'm asking for an individual. To reduce the risk of COVID-19 as an individual, what kind of resources you should have? Just for you, I'm asking for you. Financial resource, how? It's financial resource will help your risk of COVID-19. Of course, healthcare facility is right, but it's a resource for the capacity for the districts or the country or the state. I'm asking a resource or capacity for an individual, which helps to reduce your risk of COVID-19. Following health and sanitation, immunity, yes. immunity is your capacity, right? But it's not a resource for you. But at the same time, yes, vaccination. Perfect. Yeah, perfect answer, Sumitra. Mask and sanitizer is the right answer, which is a resources for you to reduce the risk. Immunity is your strength. That is also a capacity. Okay, good. Everyone understood. Move on to the next. Damage. Basically, everyone, you may aware of the disaster impact or the damage. Whenever cyclone or landslide or earthquake or flood comes, we face a lot of damages, right? Basically, the disaster damage occurs during and immediately after the disasters, right? And when the disaster comes, the next day, if you see the newspaper, you can see the damages or the impact. Basically, they used to mention that now in the units or in the numbers, they mentioned that number of houses were damaged, number of houses partially damaged, number of houses fully damaged, number of electric poles fell down, square meters of roads, not square, sorry, kilometers of roads were damaged, square meters of housings were damaged. So the disaster damage is being in terms of physical units or in numbers, which helps us to plan for a recovery. And if you see the damage of COVID-19, every day if you see the bulletin, health bulletin, you may see how many number of people infected, number of people died, number of people recovered, number of people vaccinated. But also, we always measure the impact or damage in terms of numbers or physical units, which helps to uh, plan for a recovery. Now, let's understand the disaster risk management. Just let me give a brief background. Till 2005 Disaster Risk Management Act, we were just focusing on disaster management. After having any disaster, we used to just respond. We used to just give a we used to provide a food, we used to provide a dress, we used to provide a shelter to the affected people. But after this Disaster Management Act 2005, there is a paradigm shift from the disaster management to disaster risk management. And we were started doing the disaster risk management. We started doing the preparation, mitigation, prevention, and all. Right? So the disaster risk management is the organization, planning, and application of measures preparing and responding to and recovering from the disasters. So disaster risk management means planning and application of measures from the preparation stage. Before disaster comes, we need to be prepared, from preparation to recovery. Okay, so that's what disaster risk management. There is a formula: hazard multiplication by multiplication, vulnerability, and multiply by exposure divided by capacity, right? So the hazard, vulnerability, and exposure, which multiplies the risk, but the capacity is reducing the risk. Example, flood is a hazard, okay, and you are not having the Pakka house, you are not having the boat, you are not having the life jacket, but you are living in the flood prone area and you don't know swimming also, you are most vulnerable. So already hazard, flood is there and you are vulnerable. And since you are living in the flood prone area, you have exposure also when the flood comes, which all these three multiplies, which means increases your risk. But at the same time, what kind of capacity you need for reducing your risk? As previously I was saying, you need a Pakka house, you need an emergency contact number, you need to know swimming, you need to know what are the do's and don'ts during flood, you need to have a life jacket. These all capacity reduces your risk. In case you are not having all these capacity, only you are having a hazard, vulnerability, and exposure, then multiplies your risk. So we need to remember that if you want to reduce your risk, we need to have a capacity. For example, when a child is having a risk of abuse, what kind of capacity a child should have? They should know the what is good touch, what is bad touch. They should have a knowledge of, they should also know that when they are experiencing the bad touch, they need to go and inform someone. They need to tell their parents. Then only reducing the risk. Okay. Since lack of time, I'm moving on to the next. Hope you all understand what is the risk, right? Now, moving to prevention. It's the most important three different terms which you are going to discuss: prevention, mitigation, and preparedness. Okay. Resource, there is the answer here. It should be a capacity multiply resources. Resources is also a capacity we need to understand. Okay. Resources is also a understand capacity, like attributes, strength, and resources. This all includes capacity. Understand, please. What do you mean by prevention? Anyone? Please type in the chat box. I request all the participants, you may type in the chat box. What is prevention? By the time I'll continue. Time into ma'am. So we are discussing about prevention. Any activities or measures to avoid existing and new disaster risk is called prevention. Okay. There is some answer in the chat box. Okay. To avoid the disaster. Thank you, Mr. Pius. And preparedness, Reina Singh. Okay. Thank you, Reina Singh, for responding. Prayer safety. Seema said prayer safety. Thank you. Of course, you all are right. But three things we need to remember when we talk about prevention. Any activity or measures which you are taking to reduce the risk, sorry, not reducing, to avoid the risk or eliminate the risk, are completely avoiding, eliminating the risk is called prevention. I'll give an example so that you can understand. Now, there is a small mountain and the person who is standing below, and the top there is a stone. When the chain holds the stone, the risk is completely removed, avoided, eliminated. Then it is a prevention. The process of holding the chain which holds the stone is called prevention. Okay. Similarly, sometimes prevention also aims to reducing the vulnerability and exposure in such context where the risk of disaster is not removed. Means because of that, risk is also removed. Okay. Example I'm giving. We are constructing a dam and embankments and canals which eliminate the flood risk. So it's a prevention activity. Whatever the activity which you are doing, if it helps to remove the risk or avoiding the risk or eliminating the risk, then it is a prevention activity. I've given the pictorial example, and the constructing of dams is also a example for prevention. Listen carefully. I'll explain prevention, mitigation, and preparedness. After that, I may raise a question you need to answer. Regan Sitik also mentioned that avoid risk. Thank you. Now, moving on to mitigation. Here, you need to again remember three words. Any activity or measures you are taking to help to lessen, minimize, or reduce the impact of hazardous event, then it is called mitigation. So any activity or process or phenomena which helps to lessen, reduce, or minimize the adverse impact of the hazardous event, then it is called mitigation. See this picture, the person who is living below the Paka house. That protection helps him to reduce the risk. When the stone fell down, he may not lose his life. He may get little injury. The protection helps him to reduce the risk. So it is mitigation. Okay, I'll give some more example. Again, we are taking the example. When you are riding a bike, you are wearing the helmet. This does not mean that you will not get an accident. There is a risk, but the helmet helps you to reduce the risk. Similarly, you are wearing a seat belt, which helps to reduce the risk. Okay. And COVID-19 vaccination does not mean that you will not get infected. Even if you're infecting, your life is safe. You will not lose your life. So it's again reducing the risk. It's all mitigation measures. Sometimes these mitigation measures includes engineering techniques and hazard resistant construction, as well as improved environmental social policies also. In an earthquake, if you're having a pakka building, earthquake resistant building, even if earthquake occurs, which helps to reduce the earthquake risk. If it is an earthquake resistant building, the building may not be damaged. Your life may be safe. So it's a mitigation measures. And we are having a guideline of COVID-19 containment zones. It's a policy. For what purpose? Why we are having such guidelines, such policies, which helps to reduce the risk. And public awareness. If you are aware of what are the do's and don'ts during COVID-19, if you have a knowledge, which also helps to reduce your risk. It's all mitigation measures. Moving on to the next, preparedness. The knowledge and capacities developed by the government and response and recovery organizations, communities and individuals to effectively anticipate and respond and recover from the impact of the disaster. See, we have a different like NIDM, INDRF, all the SDMA, they all build the knowledge and capacities to the people. It's a preparedness. We are preparing the society. When the disaster comes, you need to be safe and you need to respond and recover from the impact. Now, a lot of guidelines came, like during COVID-19, you may see yesterday presentation, which all have been given by the government. You need to wear a mask. You need to wash your hands frequently. Right? These are all the knowledge and capacities developed by the government through social media and television and different in print media also. For what? It's all preparedness. When you are having such, when you are facing such problems, you need to respond and recover quickly for that purpose only. So the preparedness is nothing but building the capacity and knowledge of the society or people for effectively responding or anticipate to the disasters. Okay. Now I'm having a question to all the participants. You are living in a COVID-19 containment zone. You are supposed to go outside for some important work. You are supposed to go outside for some important work. I'm going to ask three things as a part of preparedness. What you will do as a part of mitigation, what you will do as a part of prevention, what you will do. So my first question is, as a part of mitigation, what you will do. So all of you type in the chat box. After that, I'll move. Be careful. You need to answer all these three. I'm repeating. You all are living in the COVID-19 containment zone. You are supposed to go outside for some important work. In that case, as a part of mitigation, what you will do? Please type in the chat box. After that, I'll go for a prevention and preparedness. So now you answer for the mitigation. Thank you so much for all of your answer. And now you may answer for the uh, preparedness. Okay. I'll just, by the time I'll check all of your answer. Hereafter, whatever you're typing, please type your answer for what you will do for as a part of preparedness. Let me check the answers. Okay, regular hand wash, maintaining social distancing, maintain all types of vaccination, wear mask, vaccination, wear mask, carry sanitizer, use hand sanitizer, hand wash, make distance, avoid crowd, wear mask, carry sanitizer, wear N95 mask, travel only if you are urgent, wear mask and maintain social distance, avoid pinpoint, follow the guidelines of COVID-19 and wear mask. Preparedness means to carry mask and sanitizer. Very good, Sika. You are given a perfect answer. So now coming to the preparedness, you may type in the chat box what you will do as a part of preparedness. Okay, Sika has given a perfect answer. Carrying the mask and sanitizer. That is the preparedness. Right. Be fully vaccinated is also preparedness. Yeah. Okay. Carry mask and sanitizer and avoid crowding. Okay. Yeah. Moving on to the prevention. As a part of prevention, now what you will do? Please type in the chat box. Hand washing time to time and sanitization is not preparedness. Carrying mask, carrying sanitizer, carrying gloves, knowing the containment zones in your area for the government guidelines, it's all preparedness. Okay, so now I'm expecting an answer for prevention. As a part of prevention, what you will do? I'm just repeating, prevention means completely avoiding, eliminating, or removing the risk. Rose Kumar has written, if you feel any type of cold or fever, consult your doctor. Okay, but I'm not sure for what answer you have given here. Now my question is prevention, vaccination. Please remember, vaccination is not a prevention now. Okay, because even after vaccination also there is a chance for infection. Your risk is reduced here but not removed, so it is not a prevention. Remember it. After vaccination also you may infected, but you will not lose your life. That is the surety I can give. So it's just reducing the risk, so it's not a prevention. Vaccination is take vitamins and regular checkup. Vaccination, avoid going to containment zone, stay home. Yeah, stay home is the perfect answer. See, unless if you want to prevent the COVID-19, you need to stay in home and maintain all social distancing, then only you are completely prevented. Your risk is prevented, removed. Okay. So mitigation, like wearing a mask, maintaining social distancing, and washing your hands, it's all mitigation measures, vaccination and all. So prevention is following all the precautions and also being at home is the right solution at this point of time, which I've given an example. So moving to the last term, resilience. Basically, the resilience is an ability of individual or community or a system to be resistant to the shocks. Simple word you can understand, it's a bounce back better or bounce forward. I'll give an example. Resilience is when you are throwing a ball on the wall, it back to you immediately, it returns, bounce back, bounce forward. Similarly, you may have a spring pen, right? Where if you on TikTok, sound will come, no? So if you take out the spring and if you push it, as much as you are pushing, the spring will jump it, bounce forward. That's called resilience. So here with related to disaster risk management, even after the cyclone, immediately if you could able to come back to the normal position, and if you are able to go to the office regularly, if you are able to continue with your routine, that is called resilience. I can say Orissa is one of the resilient state. Even every year, at least 2 to 3 cyclones they are facing, but on the next day itself, they could able to go to schools and they could able to do a normal life. So resilience is basically a bounce back better or bounce forward. So with this, now let me stop my session. And if any questions regarding this, you can ask. Otherwise, I will take up the second subject also. After that, we can have a question answer also together.
Thank you very much, Dr. Balu, for a very informative presentation and also for engaging everybody in the interesting activities during the session, which has prompted all of us to think and recollect. So at present, we do not have any questions in the question answer box. So I'll request the participants to meanwhile share their questions and we can move on to the second presentation. So I will now request you to begin with the third and last session for the day. That is the subject for which is Introduction to CCDR. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. Let me give a brief background. I will be making it as a more interactive way. So I request all of you to keenly listen to this and respond to my questions through chat box. Okay. And during 2001 to 2005, there was a 10 major droughts in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, and Telangana. And because of that, more than 36% of the children were being affected by child stranding, and more than 26% of the children were being affected by child wasting. And you can just refer COVID-19, the impact on the children was very high. Though they were not directly much affected, but the indirect impact of COVID-19 is huge. Like their movement was restricted, they were not able to go to school, they were not able to meet their friends. Many children, they did not able to get their midday meals, and many children without seeing the school, they have been promoted to the next class. Like what are maybe the type of disasters the children are directly and indirectly they were being affected? That's what we need to understand. So whenever any type of disaster comes, the children are being directly and indirectly affected. Okay. So at the same time, if we ask, are we involving the children in the disaster risk reduction activities? No, the children are not being involved because we always think that the children are most vulnerable. Of course, the children are vulnerable, but at the same time, we need to think how we are going to involve the children in disaster risk reduction activity. And the children voices are also not heard in the disaster risk management activities because again, we think children are dependent, they are vulnerable, they are child. So their voices are not heard in the disaster risk management planning and process. And whenever any type of disaster happens, the children can be further harmed or abused and exploited after the disaster. Let me give an example. In Andhra Pradesh, during the first COVID-19 lockdown, what happened, a person who was having a tea shop, he was supposed to close the shop and he's not having any income. And he was planning to do a farming in his own land. But even for that, he's not having enough money. So what he has done, by using his own 2 girl children, he was blowing a land. See, already because of the COVID-19, the children are being affected. And further, because of that, again, they were harmed. And the same is happening many times. By using the uncontrolled law and order situation at any type of, at the time of disasters, the children were abused and they were become a child labor and they were forced to have a child marriage. Even sexual abuse and trafficking is also happening. So what I'm trying to say is the children were being directly and indirectly affected at the time of disasters. But at the same time, the children are not being involved and the children are not empowered. Their participation is neglected. This is the situation. We need to understand the children should be involved in the DRR. So let's see why the children should be involved in the disaster risk reduction activities. As per United Nations Convention on Rights of the Children, each and every child, irrespective of age, religion, gender, ability, they have a right to participation. So we need to ensure that the children should participate in the DRM activity. And the children are able to convey the message with meaningfully and effectively. See, when a child goes to school and back from the school, and especially after 2 years, the schools were reopened. And after coming back from the school, the children used to tell each and everything what happened whole day in the classroom. I fell down here, I missed this, my friend has beaten me, I did not take snacks, teacher has given, miss has given this homework, blah, blah, blah. They used to tell each and everything. And many times we used to say, the mom used to say, Are Baba, bas, mere paas zyada kaam hai, aap chaliye, aap homework kariye. So like this, we used to stop them. So what I'm trying to say here is the children have capacity or have a skill to convey the message. And they also have a skill of they are also willing to learn new things. And they also have culture of adaptation to the new thing. Now we are all running with our life with the smartphones. And many times we are not aware how to use some particular mobile applications. To whom we are asking? Of course, we are asking to the children. Right? And still we are not aware if the children are using some application, we are not aware how to exit from that application. And the children also have an immense creativity. If any teachers are there or a parent, you may observe some kind of creativity among your own children. If you have observed such kind of any creativity, you may type in the chat box what kind of creativity do you observe. And I'll give some example. As you all are aware, Assam is facing 3 waves of flood every year. A boy who was thinking, why every year whenever the flood comes, my school materials were lost, my houses are damaged, we are not having a place to live, we are not have a place to sleep. He came up with the creative idea of making his own house on the top of the tree. Right? After that, now all his materials are safe. As you know, the Assam is having a full of resources of bamboos. So by using that, he made his house on the top. And the children also can, I'll give another example. In many government schools, there is no enough toilet facilities or sanitation facilities. A group of school children, they came up with the initiative of making their own toilet facility by using the bamboo sticks and the mud pot. Just imagine how they can able to solve their problem with the creativity. And similarly, you people may have heard of seed balls. Seed balls is nothing but making a ball by using the cow tank and soil, and finally they insert the seeds. And before the rainy season, they used to throw into the field or in the forest area. Whenever rain comes, plants comes out of from the seed balls. It's a kind of creativity being done by the children to adapt the climate change. So overall, what I'm trying to say from this slide is the children have a right to participation and they can convey the message with effectively, meaningfully, and they're willing to learn, and they also have a creative. So we need to ensure that their rights of participation is ensured and their potential is being utilized in the disaster risk management. So we need to involve children in DRR. So coming to the Ccdr, as the title of the program itself, child-centric disaster risk reduction. So we need to understand what is actually a child-centric disaster risk reduction means. These are the most important points, these 3 points, at least you need to know when you're attending the program. Focusing on specific risk being faced by the children and addressing that. So child-centric disaster risk reduction means focusing on specific risk being faced by the children and addressing that. Okay. So I'll give an example. When the flood comes, the children are vulnerable. They have a risk because they are in size they are much less and they are dependent. If they do not know swimming, they are having the risk. So how are we going to solve this, address this? And when we are crossing the road, being an adult, we know we should see both sides. If no vehicle comes, then only we have to cross the road. But the children are not like that. Without seeing anything, without worrying, just they suddenly cross the road. This is specific risk being faced by the children. And we know that we should not touch the electronic transformer or the right. So these are all the specific risks we need to address. And at the time of disaster, the children may need a milk, but we may provide a meal which may not be suitable for the child. And a 17-year or 16-year-old girl child may require a sanitary napkin, which may not be available. So these are all the specific risks being faced by the children at the time of disasters, which we need to address that. So addressing the specific risks of the children is child-centric disaster risk reduction. The second most important is involving children in the disaster risk reduction efforts. Whatever the disaster risk reduction effort which you are taking, we need to involve children. How do we involve? For example, there is a, now we are doing the COVID-19 risk reduction activity. For reducing COVID-19 risk reduction, what are the activity which we are doing? We are conducting a campaign for creating awareness among the society. We can involve children. We can involve children for creating awareness about how to wash hand. Yesterday, Dr. Rakame told you 20 seconds minimum we need to wash the hand. And he may explain about 10 or 8 steps of washing the hand. Many people still not aware. So we can involve children for creating awareness on how to wash their hands properly. We can involve children to create awareness about how to wear masks safely. We can involve children in making homemade masks. And during the vaccination camp, there is a shortage of human resources from the health department. So we can involve children for making the people to stand in a line or maintaining the social distancing in the vaccination camp, or registering the details of the vaccine person who is coming for the vaccination, right? So these are an example of involving children in DRR. And the third point is child-centric disaster risk reduction is disaster risk reduction for the children and with the children. It's like a democracy for the people, with the people, and of the people. It's the same. To reduce the risk of the child should do something. The children themselves should wear a mask. The children themselves should wash their hand. The children should know while walking on the road, they should walk on the left side. The children should know they should not cross the road before seeing both the sides. So the children themselves should do certain things to reduce their risk. So child-centric disaster risk reduction means focusing on specific risks being faced by the children and addressing that, involving children in the disaster risk reduction activities and disaster risk reduction for the children and with the children. If you are to reduce the risk of the COVID-19, we need to do with the children. We need to involve the children. Okay. So moving on to the next, I would like to ask a question to all the participants. Who is child? Because many times we may confuse that how we can involve child in DRR activity. It's a child DRR, how we can do? You may have a confusion. Already we were discussing that the children are vulnerable, they are dependent. So you may think that how we can engage children in DRR. So let us first understand who is child. So now it's my question to all the participants. You may type in the chat box. Who is child? Okay. Kulshan has written 0 to 18 years. Let's see. Any other opinion? Who is child? He has written below 18 years. I think, I don't know whether yesterday you have discussed or not. Okay, Sumitra Mahanti has written below 18 years, up to the age of 18. Okay. Who is dependent on others for their needs and protection? Shika has mentioned. Okay, fine. Thank you, Shika, Shamar, Kumar, Ashwani, Kumar, below 18. Okay, thank you so much. Most of the people you are aware. Pooja has written 0 to 15 years. Okay. See, we have a different definition for child in our country. If you take a child labor act, the person below 14 years, they all are called child. If you take a Minds Labor Act, the person below 18 years, they all are called child. If you take a Marriage Act, it varies for boys and girls, 18 and 21. But here what we refer is, as per United Nations Convention on Rights of the Children, the person below 18 years old, they all are called child. Okay. So now this below 18 is clear. From which stage onwards? When a child in a warm stage, when a woman get conceived, from that stage to below 18, they all are called child. So the 9 months of pregnancy is called prenatal. Okay. And we from these children, we can divide into different life cycle. The 9 months of pregnancy is called prenatal, and 0 to 2 years called infant, 3 to 5 years is called childhood, early childhood, 6 to 12 years middle childhood, and 13 to 18 years called adolescence. Okay, hope you all understood. Now coming to the definition of CCDR, the children and adolescent must not be merely perceived as a victim. Okay, many times, even in my presentation also I've said that the children are victim, they are vulnerable. Of course they are vulnerable, but they are not just merely a vulnerable or victim, they are also an effective actor. I'll give an example. In COVID-19, the children are victim. They are infected and they were not able to go to school. They were highly affected. But at the same time, large number of children, they were effectively involved in the disaster risk management activity. They were effectively involved in COVID-19 risk reduction activity. Many children, they have distributed masks. Many children, they were in the airport to help the people to make them in the quarantine or to trace their contact. So they were also served as an actor. So now I was telling that we can divide the life of a child into 5 different phases, like prenatal, infant, early childhood, and adolescence. So in all these 5 stages, we need to see their level of physical, social, emotional development. Okay. Infant, early childhood, their capacity and their development is different. But we can take here the 6 to 12 years childhood or middle childhood, and the adolescence 13 to 18 years. This is the perfect group where they have a physical, social, and emotional development. So we need to assess their capacity and their willingness and their opinions. According to, we need to promote a space and mechanism for their full participation, which means we need to find how we can engage, how capable of this 6 to 12 years old child. They are capable of doing first aid. If you are trained them properly, they can provide a first aid to someone. If you are trained them, they can help in the relief center. And 12 to 13 to 18 years old, if you are trained them properly, they can be involved in rescue and evacuation. So we need to see the children's capacity and their development and their willingness. Accordingly, we have to promote spaces for their participation in the disaster risk management activity. So that's what the definition says. So overall, the children should not be merely perceived as a victim. They are also an effective actor. So taking into the account their level of physical, social, emotional development, accordingly, we need to promote space and mechanism for their full participation in DRR activity. So before that, I would like to show a small documentary movie where you can understand how you can engage children. After that, I'll come back again for this presentation. Please, can anyone confirm, is it audible and visible?
Yes, sir. It's both audible and visible.
Bangladesh is the world's most unique green delta. People of this land stay close to the nature. They love nature and are made to be loved by nature. Bangladesh is a riverine country, largely dependent on the nature's mercy. With its 1,000 arms, mercy goddess nature has brought blessings for this country. Here, people have also seen the frightful, cruel face of Mother Nature. Due to the human-caused injustice to nature and climate change, now Bangladesh is the world's most disaster-prone region. Now, natural disasters such as flood, drought, tornado, cyclone, and spate have constant companion of this region's people. These natural disasters snatch people, asset, prospect, dream, and our future. Southern districts are the most disaster-prone regions of the world's most disaster-prone country, Bangladesh. Arif, the child, one of the southern districts. His habitat is the small ramshackle cottage. Arif and his family are still burying those memories of 2007's frightful Ccdr. This Ccdr made his mother crippled. But this disaster has changed his life. After this disaster, Arif has realized that surviving demands fighting with nature. For this, preparedness is needed. During that time, Arif met Omid. Omid inspired Arif to join Children's Club. Arif has received practical training on disaster preparedness in this Children's Club. Arif realizes what to do if disaster like Ccdr attacks again. Not only Arif, there are more children in Children's Club. They get training, be prepared. These children go to villages, collect disaster-related data from people.
আমরা আগে উদ্দীপন শিশু যুব ক্লাব থেকে আসছিলাম একটা জরিপে তো আপনার কাছ থেকে কিছু আমরা তথ্য আগে নিব যদি আপনি একটু সহযোগিতা করতেন আমার ধরেন ঝড় আসছে গাছ পড়ে গেছে গাছটা কাইটে যে 5 জন মানুষ উঠিয়ে ফেলায় রাস্তাটা পরিষ্কার করে এরকম কোন লোকজন আছে নিজের ইচ্ছে
আপনার সাথে আমরা একটু আলোচনা করি আপনাদের এলাকায় কি ধরনের দুর্যোগ হয়
দুর্যোগ হয়েছে তো আমাদের এলাকায় 88 সালের বন্যা হয়েছে মারাত্মক বন্যা যার কোনো মুখে কল্পনা করা যায় না
On the basis of collected information, they exchange information related to disaster risks and strategies in yard meeting with the people of that area.
আমাদের এলাকায় বিভিন্ন সময় বিভিন্ন দুর্যোগ হয় যেমন সিডর হইছে আইলে হইছে তো সেই বিষয়েই আমরা এখন আপনাদের সামনে আলাপ করব যে আমাদের এলাকায় কোন কোন ধরনের দুর্যোগ হয়েছে বা হওয়ার সম্ভাবনা আছে।
আপনাদের এলাকায় কি কি ধরনের দুর্যোগ হয়?
আমাদের এলাকায় সাধারণত দেখা গেছে 6 ঋতুর দেশ তো, আর দ্বিতীয় কথা হলো নদীমাতৃক দেশ। এখন এই নিম্ন অঞ্চলে বরিশাল বিভাগের সাতকারা দেখা গেছে আমরা সবাই খেটে খাওয়া মানুষ, দেখা গেছে কৃষিকাজ করতে গেছি হঠাৎ করে সিডার চলে আসছে।
এখানে মেন সড়কে বারহাট থেকে পিরোজপুর দিকে যে রোড গেছে সেই রাস্তার এটা হলো চালনার ব্রিজ। ব্রিজের পাশ থেকে একটা রাস্তা চলে গেছে, বৌডুবির দিকে চলে গেছে। এখান থেকে শুরু করে আমি একদম সোজা, এটা হলো আমাদের মানে ইউনিয়নের দক্ষিণ সাইড, এটা হচ্ছে দক্ষিণ। এখন আমি দক্ষিণ দিক থেকে শুরু করলাম। আমি চালনারপুর থেকে আগে এসে আমরা মেন রোডের অর্থাৎ পশ্চিম পাশে একটি সাইক্লোন সেন্টার।
On the basis of all these, they make the map indicating disasters and resources. Club finalizes this map. Then, this map is presented in the meeting with Union Porishop. This is finally approved here.
আমরা প্রথমে আমাদের 6টি সাথে, তারপর আমাদের 12 মাস সাথে আমাদের আপদ পেয়েছি। বন্যা আমাদের আশেপাশে খুব বেশি হয়, মানে জুন জুলাই, তারপর শ্রাবণ, জুলাই আগস্ট থেকে বেশি হয়। মার্চ মাসে আগস্ট এবং মে মাসে মাঝে মতন হয়। সেপ্টেম্বর অক্টোবরে খুব বেশি হয়। নভেম্বর ডিসেম্বরে খুব কম হয়।
এখানে আমরা দেখছি ডিসপ্লেতে নভেম্বর ডিসেম্বরে বন্যার ঝুঁকি কম, কিন্তু আমাদের অভিজ্ঞতা থেকে বলছি যে আমরা সিডর ভয়াবহ সেই ঘূর্ণিঝড় সিডর ফেস করছি নভেম্বরের 15ই নভেম্বর 2007। এরপরে আরও কিছু সিগন্যাল আসছিল, সেগুলো হয়তো আমাদের এই অঞ্চলে আসে না, সেটিও নভেম্বরের মধ্যে কিন্তু ছিল। নভেম্বর মাসটাকে আমরা একেবারে মানে ছোট করে দেখতে পারি না। আমি এখন আশাবাদী যে প্রাকৃতিক দুর্যোগ আলাদা করে যদি আমাদের অঞ্চলে আসে, যে সমস্ত যুবক ভাইরা ছোট ভাইরা আমাদের এই কাজের ব্যাপারে উৎসাহিত, আমরা ইনশাল্লাহ যে কোনো প্রাকৃতিক দুর্যোগ মোকাবেলা করতে সক্ষম হব।
Thus, Arif and the child of this human habitation have become a united force, ready to face disasters. These children suffer most in the natural disaster of Bangladesh. So, Arif's preparedness only mitigates disasters. Though Bangladesh has gone far ahead in the field of disaster risk reduction, still, children are ignored in disaster preparedness and strategies for confronting disasters. In order to change the situation, Save the Children has adopted society-based child-centered disaster risk reduction program. Along with partner organizations, Save the Children is preparing children like Arif in disaster-prone areas so that they can win over disasters. This club is preparing Arif and his friends to confront disasters. They are preparing themselves as trained children. Following this, 2,640 children are being prepared through 30 clubs to fight against disasters. Even the entertainments are disaster preparedness centered.
অবস্থা বেশি একটা ভালো ঠেকতেছি না।
8 নম্বর মহাবিকাশ সংকেত অভিযোগের প্রয়োজনীয় জিনিসপত্র নিয়ে নিরাপদ স্থানে আশ্রয় নিন। 8 নম্বর মহাবিকাশ সংকেত, 8 নম্বর মহাবিকাশ সংকেত, ভাইকে তোর বন্যার সিগন্যাল দিতেছে, তাড়াতাড়ি কাজ করি না বাবা।
সংকেতের কত খুশি আছে
হয় হয় ওই মাইকেও কইছে টেলিভিশনেও দেখাইছে আরে মুরগি টুরগি না হোক
Thus, an aware, united, and child-friendly population can mitigate disaster risks and handle disaster situations. Say, for example, Arif and his friends. Now, Arif is much more self-confident as well as self-assured.
2007-এ যে আমাদের সিডা হয়েছে সেই সিডা হয়েছে আমার মা পঙ্গু হয়ে গেছে আজকে যদি সেই সিডা আসে তাহলে আর আমার কোনো ক্ষয়ক্ষতি হবে না আমার পরিবারের কোনো ক্ষয়ক্ষতি হবে না প্লাস আমার আত্মীয় স্বজনদের কোনো ক্ষয়ক্ষতি হবে না কারণ আমি এখন জানি যে দুর্যোগ আসলে কী করতে হবে দুর্যোগ চলাকালীন সময় কী করতে হবে দুর্যোগ শেষে আমাদের কী করতে হবে আমি এখন সব বিষয়ে জানি আর তাই আমি এখন বলতে পারি দুর্যোগ আসলে আমার মনে হয় আমার পরিবার সহ আমি যাদেরকে এই বিষয়ে জানাইছি তাদের কারোই কোনো ক্ষতি হবে না
All of them are self-assured. A self-assured Bangladesh like this can be the prime force to handle the disaster situation. Disasters are bound to come, but need to be handled with sufficient preparedness. A prepared generation can mitigate disaster effects.
I hope you all have enjoyed with the documentary movie, which might helpful for you to understand how we can engage children in the DRR activity. Okay, so now back to the presentation. So we have seen the definition for child-centric DRR, right? So let us see the goal of child-centric disaster risk reduction. The goal of Ccdr is strengthening the accountability mechanism between the right holder and duty bearer by providing the information flow and developing their capacity. For example, we have a right holder. Like, who is right holder? All the children, their parents. In case of absence of parents, their guardian, and the pregnant women also, of course. So they are all right holders. And another side, we have a duty bearers. What are the duty bearers? Of course, all the local government, central government, state government, international community, right? Civil society organizations, even private sector, or all the land departments who are all working for the welfare of the children, they all are called duty bearer, right? So how we are going to strengthening the mechanism? So here, among the right holders, we need to create awareness about their rights, so that even at normal time or at the time of disaster, they can ask for their rights, or they can ask for their needs, or they can ask for fight for their rights. And another side, among the duty bearer, we also need to create awareness about the children's rights and their roles and responsibilities to protect and fulfill the rights of the children. Okay, so by this two-way building, creating awareness among the society or the right holders, and making the duty bearers to understand their roles and responsibilities, which makes to strengthen the accountability mechanism between the right holder and duty bearer. Let me give an example of some CCDR initiatives so that you can understand some more activity. Before that, can anyone tell me who is C? I'm showing two girl children's photo, and right side there is one girl. Can anyone tell me who is C? You may type in the chat box, or whatever the information you know about her, you may type in the chat box. I'm showing two girl children's photo, And right side, there is a one girl. Can anyone tell me who is she or what are the information you know about her? You may, yeah. Thank you, Neha. Greta Thunberg. Yeah, she is a Greta Thunberg. Of course, you are right. Any other information about her? If anyone knows, you may type in the chat box. Okay, let me continue. Of course, as you said, she's a Greta Thunberg. She's a Swedish girl, and she's an environmental activist. As recently one participant has typed, environmental activist, yeah, as Neha said. And she has started a campaign called 3F, Friday for Future. Every Friday, she was started striking the school and had a protest in front of the parliament to save the children from the impact of climate change. Okay, so later on, she has become an environmental activist, and her movement has been spread across the world. And children from various countries have also been joining her movement. So this is an example where what I'm saying is how a child can mobilize for an action, how a child can influence others' behavior, right? So let me give some example how a government of Odisha has done some CCDR initiative at the time of Cyclone Fani. Before Cyclone Fani, almost 2,653 severe underweight, and SAM means severe acute malnourished children, and more than 73,000 pregnant women were provided a take-home ration in advance to ensure the continuity of services and to ensure the nutrition food for the malnourished children and pregnant women, even at the time of cyclone. And the same initiatives have been done online class. So the same kind of initiatives were done by the many state governments during COVID-19 lockdown, and they have come up with the initiative of providing take-home ration to all those children, Anganwadi children. And the government of Odisha has also taken a special initiative of providing special care to the old age people and differently abled and women and children much before cyclone approached. And they have also been visited all the childcare institutions, and they have also ensured the availability of food to in all the childcare institutions. And during the cyclone Fani, the government of Odisha has also done that. They have paid off the school fees and school examination fees up to the high school level, so that they're to address the dropout of the children. And the extra 2 pairs of uniforms were being provided to the extremely affected area children, and 1 extra pairs of uniform were provided to the severely affected areas of the children. So the prior inspections was done, and the instructions were also given to the Women and Child Welfare Department people to ensure the safety of children, pregnant women, and lactating women. So these are all certain examples, and how a government of Odisha has done an initiative of child-centric DRR activity. Let me give some examples how you can engage children in the DRR activity. With this, let us start. Now, in case if you are a teacher, you are conducting the regular sessions. In that, you may integrate the DRR subject or CCA lessons into the existing subjects, right? And in your school level, you may conduct some campaigns to create awareness among your students. And you also can conduct some extracurricular activities like a campaign or contest or swimming skill, right? Or cycling. These are all some of the life-saving skills which helps the students. And you may also promote a special savings habit among the school children. Special savings is nothing but for saving for a particular purpose. Whenever the disaster comes, the saving may be donated to the disaster affected people, or the saving can be used for their own family when they are facing the disasters. So these are all some of the examples, and I'm giving some more example also. During COVID-19, a large number of children, they have been involved in tracing the contact of the infected persons, and they were also involved in distribution of masks, and the children were also involved in sanitizing the public places, in joining the hands with the local government. So now, the last activity with this will complete. I request all the participants to type minimum one activity. Sorry, how you will engage children in the disaster risk reduction. One answer from each participant. I hope you all understand my question. I request all the participants to type minimum one answer, how you will engage children in the disaster risk reduction activities. I have said a lot of the examples. One more I can give: conducting mock drill to the students, earthquake mock drill, fire drill. This is one example. So I request all the participants, you may kindly type one answer, how you will involve children in the DRR activity. Okay, a lot of answers are coming. Poster making competition, promote handbagging activity among the students, school safety planning, good. We have a school safety club and we deal all disaster mitigation methods. Good, Reina Singh. We are organizing stage drama. Yeah, thank you. Awareness creation, show them clips of disaster and ask them how things could be better. Okay, street play, essay writing competition. Thank you. Think of more than that, how you can engage them in the disaster risk reduction activity. For example, if flood comes, how you can engage the children. If there is a relief center, a shelter home, the children can be placed there and they can help the people who are in the relief center. They can provide a water facilities, they can distribute the food. Okay, yeah. Thank you so much to all the participants. So with this, let me stop my session. And if any questions are there, Ms. Manika, you may facilitate.
Thank you very much, Dr. Balu. At present, we do not have any questions in the question answer box. So with your permission, may I sum up today's session? Or we can wait.
Yes, ma'am, you may proceed.
Yes, because I see there are no questions in the chat box as well. So, so with that, we
already
yes,
so
sir,
most of the
right.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah.
with that, we'll sum up today's session. So I would like to again thank our speakers for their valuable views and for conducting the sessions in a very interactive manner. I'm sure that the participants would also agree that the interaction and the visual representation made the sessions all the more interesting. The participants, on the other hand, also deserve a special appreciation for actively engaging and responding to the questions during the discussions and sessions. I would like to remind everyone to kindly join us tomorrow at the same time, that is 11 a.m., for the last day of the program, which will deal on some very crucial subjects and train and equip us to react in a conscious and cautious manner. Meanwhile, if any queries have remained unanswered, or if there is anything else that we can help you with, please reach out to us on policyperspective@gmail.com. The ID was earlier mentioned in the chat box. Meanwhile, please register yourself if you haven't done so far, because it is a prerequisite in order to receive a successful participation certificate. So with that, we look forward to connecting with you all tomorrow with this on the same time and with the same spirit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.